Hey guys, what's up? This is Twin Reaper here, and I'm going to welcome you to a series of unscripted tutorials for Halo 2 PC. For those of you who know me, please don't spam me in Discord laughing at me and calling me names and all that shit. I know they're going to be horrible, but hopefully they're going to be informative for those who keep asking me questions. So before we get started here, main reason I'm doing this is because, yeah, in Discord and various other forums and medias, I always get basic questions asked about how to make maps, how certain things work, why won't certain things work. The answer is because no one really bothered to make a very good in-depth plain tutorial to explain them. Most are just pieces of shit created by some people who, I don't know, maybe they were on drugs, maybe they were just drunk. I don't fucking know. I'm really fucking tired right now. So without further ado, we're going to start off with some mapping basics here. So for all you Blender users out there, sorry, I like 3ds Max and I stick with the tools that were meant to be used with Halo 2, which is 3ds Max 7. So we're going to fire that up. Shout out to Himanshu, you the man. General, you're okay. Kit Kat, I love you. Okay. Yeah, this takes forever. Sorry. Eventually it's going to load and we're going to get started. Okay, you know what? Real quick while we're waiting for that to start. I'm going to run through the directory structure with you really quick. So if we navigate to our Halo 2 map editor folder, our working directory is going to be data. So data, scenarios, multi is where you are going to be primarily working. So inside of data, scenarios, multi, you will have a folder with your map name, whichever one it is. Today I'm just going to be running through Corvette with you real quick as part of this tutorial. So if we double click inside of Corvette, you'll see that I've created two other folders, bitmaps and structures. Self-explanatory, all the textures you want to use in your map will go in here. And this is also where you will take the textures from to place in 3ds Max. So you can actually see them, see how they look, just to get, a rough idea of how they'll look. You can go through some advanced material and shader setups within 3ds Max to get an exact approximation, but there's really no need to go through all that shit. You pretty much know what the Halo assets look like. You've played the games. So you can pretty much already tell what textures are going to look right or how they're going to look in-game. So anyway, besides that, we have our structure. And this is where your AS file, which is your, I forget what the fuck that AS stands for. Whatever it is. Algum something scene. So anyway, and then you have your Max file, which is, of course, the file you need to open up in 3ds Max. Then you also will have your map warnings, which when you're running tool and you try to compile your AS file into a BSP, any errors that pop up, whether it says degenerate triangle or ran out of memory or whatever, open edges, they're all going to be under these two files, which you can import into 3ds Max. So that's the basic structure when you're starting out. That's it. There's no other millions of folders to create yet. You're just trying to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my map, just because it's easier to work from a map that's already in progress. I'm just going to go ahead and hide everything first because we want to start out with basics. Okay, so when you start doing mapping for Halo 2, there's one thing you have to remember. In the Halo universe, there are different scales for different games. Now, primarily, some people like to set up different types of units when they get started. There's no fucking need. Leave your units the fuck alone. There's no problem with the units the way they fucking are. Okay? Halo 1 assets, you can import into 3ds Max through OBJs or 3ds files. Doesn't fucking matter. They're 1-1 for Halo 2. So anything that's scaled in Halo 1, you can import directly into 3ds Max and it will already be scaled to Halo 2. Same thing with Halo 3, Halo Reach, ODST, and Halo 4. Any assets you import from there, it's just a scale of 1.0. That's it. It imports and it's the exact size you need. The oddball, however, is Halo 2. So if you were to import a Halo 2 BSP rip from either Adjutant or if you use the custom extractor that we worked on for Halo 2 Vista, you will have to import those assets at a scale of 100.0. Don't ask me why, but for some reason the conversion for Halo 2 is fucked up. So the lesson here is just leave units the fuck alone because you're probably not going to be Okay, looks like my microphone turned off, and I have no idea how long that was off for. So anyway, okay, so anyway, the way you have the material set up is when you click on any of these, by default, it's going to say material number. So, like mine, for right here, you would put the 3 or 4 or 5, whatever abbreviation you use to tell Tool where your shaders are being kept. That's why I put vet, space, and then cov circuits. So I'm now telling Tool, when it compiles the BSP, that the shader that it's looking for is cov circuits, and it can be found in scenarios, shaders, multi, core vet. That's it. It's really simple. It's really not any more advanced than that. A lot of people think it's a lot. There's a lot more to it, but no, that's pretty much it. You just need to tell it where to look for your shaders and then create them. And that's just everything. Now, you can use shaders from wherever you want. So if you had another map, so, alright, for instance, I think I'm using an invisible shader here for something. Yeah, I am. So I'm just pulling it from Powerhouse because that's where I usually just keep my invisible shader. I'm not sure why, but I do. So for there, I'm just putting POW space invisible. So now it knows that the invisible shader that I've specified in this map can be found in the Powerhouse shader directory. So there you go. That is pretty much it. So yeah, so then you can look at the map here, and that's how it looks. So, you know, now periodically what you want to do, you don't want to get too ahead of yourself. What you should always do first is a little bit into editing your map or creating your map. You want to export it to make sure that it still compiles properly. It's one thing I'm really bad at is I'll import a map, start working on it, and I'll be like, nah, it's fine, fuck it, it's going to compile for me, I know it will, because it always does, yeah. And then I go to export it, and I compile it, and it's like, fuck you, you've got a pipeline error, and I'm like, oh, you motherfucker. So then it's kind of like, alright, then you keep working on it, you keep getting the fucking errors, but see, now you're already too far into the fucking map, you can't even figure out at what point this map started throwing a fucking fit. Now, the same thing happened to me with Corvette, and systematically I had to start going through and deleting fucking everything and optimizing everything before I finally realized that, oh, shit, it was those stupid fucking high charity doors that I had imported into the map that were causing the fucking error to begin with. And as soon as I deleted those and exported, guess what? Yeah, it compiled right. So basically I wasted 2 days of trial and error just to get it to compile again. So do yourself a favor, after any major change or any major addition, even if it's just something small, okay? Like let's say this little ceiling decoration right there. Even if it's something like that, fucking save your work, export it, and compile it, and make sure that it actually compiles right. Doesn't matter if you have your shaders or texture set up at that point. You just want to make sure that the geometry compiles right. Okay? So when you're ready to export, obviously save, then you go to export, and then you just find your directory to export to, Microsoft Games, Halo 2 Map Editor, Data, Scenarios, Multi, and of course mine is Corvette, Structure, and then change this to F. And there you go. There it is already. So I'm not going to go resave this. Now, one guideline you have to remember is that any AS file cannot be more than 20 MBs in size. Now, the size here that's listed here is not the size on the disk. The size on the disk is actually a little bit smaller. I've actually successfully compiled an AS file that was actually 20,400 and something kilobytes. So technically, when you look at it, you're like, well, that's over 20 MBs, Twin. What the fuck? How'd you do that? No. Because the size on the actual disk was a little bit different than the size here. Okay? So anyway, you save that. Okay? Then we open our editing tool here. And then we have the level compiling tool, and it gives you a little pop-up that lets you know this is how you compile an exported AS file into a scenario structure BSP or SBSP. So we just browse to where we're going, Corvette. Now from here you can choose to compile it into a BSP. You can run lighting on the BSP that's already created, or in one shot what I like to do is compile and light. So now just because we're testing things out here to make sure everything works right so far, we always want to select something really low like checkerboard. Okay, and we hit compile. And as it goes, you can actually hit pause or break, which sometimes I like to do if I see an error pop up from like right there. Oh, let me pause it. Error, unable to find shader, glass, hex tile. So basically it's telling me that in the Corvette shader directory, it can't find glass hex tile. I already know that because I still haven't gotten around to creating it yet. I'm fucking lazy. I just don't feel like it. And then as you can see here, unable to find core invisible, I forgot to change something. So now you have two options at this point. If you're OCD like me, you can just stop. Just stop and then go in and freak out and say, oh my god, I gotta fucking change this because I don't know what the fuck I did. I want everything to be perfect the first time. That's kind of how I am. So I'm just going to do this real quick just so you can actually see my OCD and in action here. So actually, if you go back to this invisible, we can see that I have panel invisible there, but I must have had another invisible shader specified somewhere in here. So what we need to do is we need to start looking here to see if we can figure out where this other invisible shader is that I have specified under core. That was, of course, before I realized, oh shit, I've already got a shader directory called core. But I don't see it, and I'm not sure why. Interesting. I don't know why that one's doing that. That's a little strange. It's clearly not here. Let's see here. No, I cannot find a visual shader collection. I don't know why it's looking for that. Okay. Well, I can't figure that one out. But anyway. So anyway, as it goes, you know, you can read everything that's going on. Found an override. Well, yeah, it found an override because that's where my shader is. The reason why it says warning found an override for shader is because I used the shader collection from earlier and just edited my map directory into it. I like to do that because it keeps everything simple. There's not a million different shader collections to worry about through there. You know, it's just not needed. So it's going to go through eventually here. This takes a while, especially for maps that have a lot of detail like mine always do. But as you can see, we have the fundamentals, portals, B-level sphere, and everything linked to it properly. Okay? Okay, while that's going, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of how shaders work. Now, you can do this or you can't. It's really up to you. Now, because I'm kind of a perfectionist and I kind of like to know about shit before it happens, whenever I do get all the textures for a map I'm going to work on extracted, I like to compile them right away. The reason for that is it makes the shader work a lot easier if you don't have to keep going back in the middle of doing shaders and having to redo things. Or at worst case scenario is you use a texture in your level, then you go to make the shader for it, and it's like, well fuck, why isn't the texture compiling? It's like, now I gotta go figure it out, now I gotta change the size, or I gotta change something. So now you just held up work, and if you can't get a certain texture to work, or it just doesn't look right, then you know ahead of time, and you know not even to use it when you're doing the level. So what you want to do is open up your editor, go to bitmaps. Okay, select your bitmaps and compile. That's it. That's all you're doing. You're just compiling them. So once they're done, now I recommend you use H2MT Gorilla for this. This is the tool we used in the H2MT because it has all sorts of extended features. So basically, you're going to open this up and navigate to Scenarios, Multi, whatever your map name is, and then Bitmaps. And that is where all of your bitmap files that were compiled with Tool will end up. Okay? So now, thing about textures. Textures are fun. Not really. Doing textures sucks. It's extremely time consuming, especially if you have more than that, which, I wonder if I have a map where I can show you that. So many fucking shit tons of fucking bitmaps on here. Yeah, that one's pretty bad too, right there. That was grounded. That was a lot of fucking bitmaps. I actually think Powerhouse might actually be worse. I even have 2 directories for it. That's how bad it is. Yeah, that's a lot of bitmaps to individually have to adjust. Okay? So, basic rule of thumb, bump maps. Okay? Unlike Halo 3, ODST, Reach, and 4, and in some instances, I think in CE, bump maps in Halo 2 have to be monochrome. They cannot be that bluish, weird fucking prism color. Okay? See how this looks here? Not going to work. Unfortunately, it will not display properly. It will not have a height map. None of that. Okay? So, if I was using this, what I need to do is, since it's a bump map, I need to go to Format. I need to change it to monochrome. Scroll down a little bit. How is it being used? Well, since it's a bump map, it's a height map. Well, how much height do you want it to have? Well, as a general rule of thumb, I like to put it at 6. 6 is a really good solid number for bump maps. It works across pretty much any texture, so you can't go wrong with it. Okay? That's it for the height map. Then you save. Now, I know what you're thinking. Cool. Now I have it saved as a monochrome height map. No, you don't. Okay? Because unfortunately, the way things work is when you compile your bitmaps for the first time, they're compiled to default settings, which is why we have to change things. So once you have your changes made like this, you then have to go back and recompile your bitmaps in order for them to be compiled to what you just specified. And we're going to stop it right there. See if we can find, which one did I just do? There we go. BFG hose Z bump. See? Now it is created at, it'll just say intensity. Now if it was still compressed with color key transparency, or DXT1, it would have still said that because that's what it was at. But since we made it into a monochrome, you see that the output is different. So now if we go back into Gorilla and we open up that bitmap file and we view it, it's now monochrome. There we go. That is how Halo 2 uses bump maps. Must be monochrome. That's it. That's all you do, okay? Now, shaders. Shaders is the fun part, okay? So once you have all your bitmaps set up to the right formats or the right usages, then we can start creating shaders. So we go New, Shader, okay? Now, we have to pick a template to choose from. So, for instance, let's say you wanted, one of the biggest things to get asked is the ground shader. So, we're going to go to Tags, Shaders, Shader Templates, Opaque. From this list, you're going to find Texture, Bump, Detail, or whoops, no, where is it at? Texture, ugh, can't even find it now. Was it Texture, Detail, Blend, Detail? There it is. Texture, Bump, Detail, Blend, Detail. So we open that. And we are now presented with the basic shader template for this. So the base map, okay, is the groundwork for it. So like I was talking about with the textures, go to scenario, multi, let's do powerhouse for example, because that has ground. Powerhouse, bitmaps. I think I named mine powerhouse ground, if I remember correctly. Maybe I just named it ground or M something ground. Maybe I don't fucking remember. Oh, let's see. All right. Regardless, there is one. I think it was M ground new blend. Here we go. M3055 ground blend. Okay. Now I wonder if I can open this. Yeah, it's only 512 by 512. Okay. See, this is what's the blend map. Okay. Now yours for Halo 2 or CE would be actually in color. It will show actual color. It wouldn't just be this red, bluish, and green hue that the newer titles use. Okay. Well, anyway, just like bump maps, can't use it like that. It's got to be monochrome. Okay. The only difference is usage just stays default. So you just change that to monochrome, then recompile. Okay. The reason you have to do that is because in Halo 2, when you're using blend style maps, it's going to use black and grays as its way of trying to figure out what goes with what. So your base map goes here, which would be that blend map, because the base is where everything's being blended to. And then you'll see detail map 1, 2, and overlay. So detail 1 would be like, let's say if you were doing coagulation, okay? Detail 1 would probably be the grass, okay? So that is where the grass gets blended into whatever gray detail it's supposed to be on the map. The second one would be all that, cracked dirt that you see. That's what would be blended into that base map with detail map 2. And then your overlay could either be the color version of the base map, or it could just be your own custom overlay detail map. It's really up to you, okay? But either way, that's how you do a blend map. So that's it. That's how you do the ground blends that you see in coagulation or in my powerhouse map or whatever other map has outdoor levels where there's grass mixed with rocks or other types of terrain. Now, the only other thing you want to make sure you do is it has to have a material name. Now, material name is basically the material response, which is for collision. So when you shoot the ground, so if you were to shoot the ground, say you made this up and you put it in your map, when you shot the ground, it's not going to display anything. You won't see any dirt shooting up, or you won't see grass shooting up, or you won't see water shooting up, or whatever it's supposed to be. So you click on material name, default. Now you would want to go to tough, terrain, and you would want to make it whatever your blend map is. So for instance, Cody out there, or I think it's your name, I hope, who's doing Death Island port, you would probably want to use mostly a grass one, because you're going to be out there, outside, and there's a lot of grass on that level. So you would specify grass. So this way, when you shoot, it mimics, the effect that you shot grass or a ground with grass on it. Or if you were inside and this was a basic shader with just a bump map, a base map, and a detail map, you might want to change it to hard, thick, forerunner, metal response, whatever it is, that's where you want to put it. So now, run through with you real quick how to do water, because water is another one where people really get stuck. Now I'm going to use, should I use powerhouses? Let's see, my own powerhouse, yeah. Alright, so let's just do powerhouses. I thought that was water stagnant. Or stagnant water. Or am I just losing my mind and I can't seem to find it here. Oh, goodness. Where the hell did I put my water? Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Where the fuck did Twin put his goddamn water shader? Because it was there. Okay. Scenarios, multi-name and powerhouse. Oh, that's right. I'm in bitmaps there. Oops. Okay, that's why. Yeah, I'm an idiot. Okay, so scenarios, shaders, multi-powerhouse, and that's where I'm going to find stagnant. There we go. Stagnant water still. Okay. Now, there are a couple of water shaders that don't seem to work right with Halo 2. I don't know if it's because Higher Gunner Pi fucked up some of the fucking vertex shading code. Who the fuck knows? They do. Anyway. Alright, so for water, this is if you have a map with water. Powerhouse obviously does. It has that pool of water in the middle. And of course I want it to look like water, and I want it to animate like water. Okay? So, your bump map, usually you want your bump map to be something that, shows waves, obviously. You don't want to use a fucking metal texture, obviously, because that's not going to fucking look right. Okay? So, now, the other question is, well, gee, how do you get it to move? Good question. We get things to move by doing translation. Okay? Translation. X and Y. So you have X this way, Y that way. Okay? Or whichever way, sometimes you have to figure out the orientation. Sometimes it's just trial and error. So anyway, we go into translation, and it's called a transition. At least I just use transition for basic water, which is basically, you're basically saying this texture is going to scroll from this point to this point. And how long is that scrolling effect going to take? I specify 5.6 seconds for Powerhouse because I don't need the water to move that quickly. If it moves too fast, it's just going to look sloppy, but if it moves way too slow, you're not even going to fucking notice it. So I used like 5.6 for it. Now there are different types of texture animations. You have periodic, which, I don't usually like to use periodic too much. Periodic is something you would mostly use on lights if they were flickering, like that. And of course, you would go to jitter for that because you'd want the light to, like, basically down here would be off, and then that's like full brightness. So so you can see here, it goes from light to dark to progressive light to dark real quick, and then to light, kind of dark light. So that's what jitter is. Now, slide, it's kind of the same thing. It's just zoop, but it's, again, it's going to be periodic. It's going to periodically scroll through over the course of 5.6 seconds. So it's not going to be smooth, and it's not going to be consistent. Now, one of the other things you can use is a spline. That's actually pretty neat if you want to create actual water that looks like it's choppy and it's moving, because you can actually specify here where the points are going to be. So see how it's like curved? So this means the water is going, as it's transitioning, it's going to like quickly go. It's going to quickly go, like almost like a wave, like to move, stop, move, and then but it's going to look natural, like with a spline. But for shits and giggles, for all you out there who are just learning to do this, just start with transition to get things working, and then you can progressively go from there. Okay. And the next section is reflection map. Now this is where your cube maps come in. Cube maps are environmental reflections. So for this, I'm specifying that for the reflection in the water, you're going to want to see Earth, City, Sky. Okay, now that can be anything. It could be Forerunner interiors. It could be whatever cube map you have that you would personally like to use for it. And it's the same thing with refraction. Okay, and I'll get into Fresnel and light map translucencies another time. That's just a pain in the ass. So back onto the environment map thing. You know, since you know Cody's doing Death Island. We're going to show him real quick how we would do this. So we're going to go into Scenarios, Shaders, Multi, Corvette, and we're going to go with Cov Metal Plate. Okay, so for a metal, where you want detail and an environment map. Okay, Forerunner Interiors is what I use for Corvette. Okay, because it's Forerunner inspired. They don't. There are a couple Covenant ones, but they just don't look right. The Forerunner one looks the best. So you're going to start out with your bump map, your base map, and then your detail map. I used Cov Hex Detail because I just think it looks really fucking cool when you're walking up to this panel and the hex detail starts to come out at you as you get super fucking close to it. And then you have the environment of Forerunner interior reflections just kind of coming off of it as you're moving around. It looks really fucking cool. Okay, now the thing with environment map reflections, you always want to specify a color that kind of goes with the color of the texture. So, you know, if I have a metal plate, excuse me, it's not going to load up actually in preview because it's 1024 by 1024. Gorilla doesn't display bitmaps properly in preview if they're above 512. I mean, I can try it, but I doubt it's going to work. It's probably going to crash. Yeah, it'll just crash on you because it can't fucking handle it. God, I love you, Halo 2. Okay. So anyway, you can see here that my BSP compiled correctly, and it tells you that there's 46,810 vertices altogether in that map, which is not really that bad considering it's Corvette. Okay. And you can see here that I'm getting couple texture errors here, so let's pause it for a second just to go back to this real quick. These are nothing to be concerned about here. These texture envelope detail double spec. Like I was telling you before about how some of the water shaders don't fucking work 'cause they broke something. Yeah, they broke something with these fucking vertex shaders too, or pixel shaders. No one's really come up with a fix for it. I just really don't fucking care that much. You know, it could just be that the files are missing, or it could be that there's something corrupt with them, but occasionally you do get messages about, you know, something doesn't work right. But, okay, anyway, back to the shader. So let's go back in here, scenario shaders, multi, Corvette, and let's see if I can find one that will actually display right. Okay, so let's try metal plate strip. Okay, metal plate strip. Alright. Let's see what size that is. Ugh, that's 1024 also. Okay, anyway, the color of the plate is like a purplish gray. Okay? So, for specular color, this is like when you're looking at the texture but on an angle. You want it to look kind of realistic in a way. So when you look at it from a certain angle, the light color on it changes, just like it would, like, you know, let's say a coffee mug. As you look around the coffee mug, you know, yeah, you can see some kind of reflection in the coffee mug, but, you know, the color's changing to match the reflection. So that's what this is doing, okay, right here, specular color and specular glancing, okay. I like to keep those colors similar to the color of the bitmap, but make it lighter because it is a reflection after all, okay? And environment tint color. This actually changes the color of the actual reflection of the Forerunner interior. So you see here how it's just all black with these, like, you know, little beige yellowy dots. If you change that environment color, this is actually changing the color of this. It's not changing the light that you see coming off of it. It's just changing this. So yeah, you just want to keep this close to your basic map color. So now I'm just going to go in and show you real quick how that is set up. Actually, I might not be able to because I decided to light this, and now I'm trying to go into it, and it's actually finishing by writing out the light map tag. I have so much RAM, it just tells you that it used 0 and there's 0 free. It always does that. Something to do with the way Tool was written. It wasn't written to really take advantage of multiple processors or large amounts of RAM. In fact, I think if you go over 8, it stops displaying the actual amount of RAM you have free in your system, which is hilarious. Okay, so here's Corvette, but of course it's lit on kind of like checkerboard now. So if you go up to the panels, you see how that light's coming down? And then you can see, as you get closer, you can see the hex detail comes out into the panel. And as you back away from it, it's just normal. God, this looks like shit on checkerboard. And I still haven't done that damn glass thing, that error that we were talking about earlier. And there's my Covenant shield. So, if you go closer to here, we don't have that texture on there. But I had that cov texture listed on something else. Ah, it's right here. Yeah, you can't really see it because it's too dark in here, but you kind of make out the hex. And as you back away, you don't really see it. I just think it looks really fucking cool in this map. And here's the doors I was talking about that actually block the sky. Ah, there it is. And there it isn't. Yeah. See, since I had a problem with the BSP not wanting to compile with those as actual geometry within the map, I had to cheat and make it a device error. And as you can see, I still have a lot of UV mapping to fix with that in particular, and there's some smoothing errors, but yeah. For those of you who get this, it's called, I think it's called the DaVinci something, but when you see that, that means you don't have a shader in the directory, or you misspelled it, or you used a wrong usage, and it can't find the shader that it's supposed to use. Okay, so now, to backtrack a little bit to that ground blend map that I was telling you about, we're going to open Powerhouse, and you can now see how that looks. Ah, I love my coffee. Now let's check in on the guys, see what they're yapping about in here now. Yeah, scripting, something. I see Mac in there. Add a new tab to main menu. Yeah, I wish we could. God only knows what they're really fucking talking about. I have no idea. So anyway, let's go back to Powerhouse here. This is, this map. I love how I did this map. And there's the ground blend. So you can see how the grass and the dirt is blended together. And this pretty much looks exactly the same fucking way it looks in Reach. It's amazing how it looks it looks great in Halo 2. Now this, of course, I ran this on low setting, so obviously things don't look as great and dynamic as they will once lighting is done completely. And you can see the water here that I was talking about. As you get down to it, you can see that the water moves, but you can't really see it right now, and that's because I have a translucency up. And then you can hear the waterfall that I did. That's a shitty waterfall. I got to redo that too. Maybe. I don't even know if I feel like doing it. I may or may not.